Jonathan, how are you, sir?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm well. Do you have a Hooker T-shirt yet?
I do not.
Oh,
I need
well,
one. I
yeah.
need
You
one. I'll
all
wear. Trust me, I'll wear it all the time.
okay? Let me write down because it's not for me. It's the quarterback, right? That's why they sell so well. So
There you go.
and I can't get attacked by the university for licensing. So because it's my
Yeah,
last name
there you go.
too. Yeah,
Look at the positives.
I got some stuff. So all right, what size are you? You look like an extra large.
Yes, yeah.
Okay. Okay, so you send me, and I'll get your mom one too. So just send me the sizes, and you've got my email, and I'll have them shipped out today. My wife loves shipping out shirts, by the way. That's her favorite thing.
Nice.
She doesn't. Jonathan Crompton, how do you see this matchup at Tennessee LSU? There's some specific questions I want to ask you about Hendon Hooker, but also want to ask you about Jaden Daniels of LSU.
Yeah.
But how do you see this matchup going?
I mean, well, preseason wise, I predicted us winning, and I'm still going to go with that. I'm not sold on LSU yet. I'm just cut straight to the chase. I don't know. They don't throw the ball very well. They really don't, or at least as of yet. And I would, if it were me, I would do what we did to Florida and say, well, you don't throw the ball very well. We're going to stop the run and the quarterback run. And if you throw for 300 yards, that's fine, but you got to prove that you can do it. Because I don't think they can as of yet. I really don't. I don't think they've fully bought into Chip Kelly's system. Just looking at it. Now, do they have a lot of talented players? 100%.
Right, Kelly, yeah.
Yeah. Sorry. But they've got talented players, but I don't think that they're clicking yet. And it also, I look a little deeper. I'm wondering at LSU, when do they ever play at noon at home?
You know what's funny about that is, yeah, it's very weird. They actually are 8-0, but you have to in their last 8 games, but you have to factor in, John, they're playing lesser opponents. So the fact that this game slipped to the noon slot is unusual, and I think helps Tennessee.
Well, no, I do too. It's just it's odd to me. It's normally at 7:00. Let every LSU fan go do their extracurricular activities before the game, all that stuff, and get ready for the game. So the noon game, I think, definitely helps us. And I know everybody's going to be worried about me talking about for them throwing for 300 yards, blah, blah, blah. But you know what? Until they prove they can do it, they can't do it. Same thing with Florida. Dude had no touchdown passes, Richardson. So make him throw the ball, right? You got to pick your poison in the game plan. So I really think that if it's me and I'm a defensive coordinator against them, I'm crowding the box. I'm going to stop the run, and I'm going to say, guys outside, you got to man up one-on-one. Just don't give up the big play. And that would be, like I said, that would be what I would do because they have not proven that they can consistently throw the ball and move the ball up and down the field to win games.
I agree. And Jaden Daniels, I thought Brian Kelly, and I noticed this before, didn't really force the ball down the field a lot. And then Brian Kelly actually said so, that he needs to be more aggressive. That's kind of the opposite of most quarterbacks. Most quarterbacks want to throw it downfield, and you hear coaches say, protect the ball, protect the ball, protect the ball. But he's saying, hey, dude, let it go. Have you been around or coached any of the players in your camps that maybe you're like, you're being a little too conservative?
Yeah, and I'm not saying this is for Daniels at LSU because I don't know him. But from my experience with that, it's typically guys that are afraid to make a mistake. They don't want to mess up. They just want to be, quote, unquote, perfect. Well, man, football's not perfect, right? You got to be efficient, but you got to take what's there. Sometimes the deep ball is what is there. It's not always, obviously. But I don't think that they do a good enough job of that. I really don't. And, I don't think they've played phenomenal teams yet either. Florida State's probably the best team that they've played. But I don't think their strength of schedule at this moment is what we're used to LSU having. Or, with their opponents. Auburn is not, let's call a spade here. Auburn is not very good. Right. Yeah. So, it's not like the typical LSU Auburn matchup last week.
let me ask you a question, John, because yeah, I've talked to Lane Kiffin. I know what you went through. I thought there was a period of time you were afraid to make a mistake. Can you?
And that wasn't because of Kiffin. That was because of the previous people.
Right. Yes.
Everything.
And I want. Yeah, I
There
want
was a
to
lot of
hear about
negativity around the program then.
that. Right. So, was there a time that you
Yeah,
were?
I mean, and that's what I'm saying. I mean, we're all human, and
Yeah.
it goes, and a lot of that is it's a 51-49% on who it's on, depending on how you want to do it with ratios. But the coaches have a lot more impact on players than people think as far as the mental state. There's a lot of stuff I can't say from behind closed doors. That would go on, but you got to have a coach that is, and I give Kelly credit for saying we got to push the ball downfield more, and letting him know, hey man, it's okay to take a chance. Sometimes your dude's got to make a play too. You know what I mean? Whoever it is out wide. So yeah, I mean there's always going to be those times. It's just a matter of, does your coach have your back or does he not? And if he doesn't have your back, trust me, it ain't fun to try to make that play, because then you're going, well, crap, I'm going to get thrown under the bus this game if it doesn't work. If I'm scrambling and trying to make a play, blah blah blah. There's a lot of things that go into the game. And at least it shows in the media that Kelly is going to have Daniels back, but I really just don't think he's the quarterback that can beat us.
I agree with both of those points. And John, I don't want to put you in an uncomfortable situation, but I don't think that you had the backing of.
No, I know. No, it's not uncomfortable. I didn't.
Yeah.
It is what it is.
So, what did Lane Kiffin do to get your confidence back?
Tell you to go be yourself, right? And it takes time, but you got to earn trust on both sides. It's not a one-way street, right? And he's got to let the coach has to let the players know, be yourself, go make the play. If it's a mistake, we'll learn from it. We won't let it happen again, but we will learn from it, instead of screaming and yelling and all that, whatever you want to say, and never actually being taught, right? Because a mistake is not a bad thing. And this is what I teach the kids. Failure is not a bad thing if we learn to fail properly. And that goes for any aspect, not just football, but any aspect of life. Because the reality is we're human. We're not all going to be perfect. All right. But if we learn from said mistake or said failure, we can learn how not to do that again. And that was a positive mistake. But if you keep doing the same thing over and over, well, that's the definition of insanity, right? That's where you're not getting better. And I feel like that's where those quote unquote mistakes were never fixed, where the same play was called the same times throughout the whole career, and the same batted ball or interception or whatever was happening, because it wasn't, hey, how do we correct this? How can we change our read? It was, well, you got to throw the ball here. All right. And that's, a kind of a short answer to what really goes into it.
It was, I know, Amanda, you want to jump in here, and please do so. I've got one more with John, who I know has to run, but John, you obviously, that Georgia game, everybody saw that your confidence was back. It was back on public display, but it probably happened before then at some point. At what point in the season did you feel like, all right, I trust this guy. I trust Lane has my back. I'm able to go out there and fling it without fear of repercussion?
After the UCLA game, when I clearly made a bonehead play, like just one of those that, but once again, sometimes things happen. They're allowed to game plan too. So the play was sluggo seam, which is slant and go with a seam and a hitch. And I was like, ooh, they play cover 3. Slant and go's not a bad, but the seam's great. Play cover 2, sluggo's awful, seam's great. If they play cover 4, neither the sluggo or the seam's great, throw the hitch. And I was like, okay, hey, they're in cover 4. I'm throwing the hitch. Corner baited me. Played cover 6, which is 4 and 2 combined. He jumped the hitch, pick, and I was like, ooh, he got me. You know what I mean? Like, sometimes things happen. So we go to the media, and normally Lane went last, and he goes, hey, I'm going first. I was like, all right, cool, whatever. Go in there and straight up says, whoever asks about said interception will never be allowed in here again. We're not doing that. That was my fault. I should have done a better job as a coach, play calling to understand they were going to play that coverage on that part of the field, blah, blah, blah. Comes off and he goes, hey, man, you know you messed up. We're going to learn from it tomorrow. Don't do it again. We'll correct and figure out the tips on how that is, blah, blah, blah. And you won't be asked about that question. I said, oh, never had that before, right? Once again, we both knew it was my fault. Hell, the whole team knew because now an interception that's a ball is tipped up, blah, blah, blah. You can't, whatever. But it was blatantly my fault. And at that point, I was like, damn, like this dude really does. He doesn't care about his media public perception. He cares about what the guys inside that locker room doors care about him and what we think about him. At that moment, we were like, okay. But we had a lot of injuries, so it still took a little while to get some receivers back. But at that moment, everybody, and it wasn't just me, but everybody was like, damn, this dude, he really does have our back. He really is going to take that bullet in the media, right? So I would say that would probably be the best definition of when any player, but specifically myself, learned that we should be able to fully trust him.
Didn't you throw the ball 42 times in that game?
I have no idea.
I thought that I'm
going to trust you on that because
I'll look it up, but I thought that showed a lot of trust. Just the fact that you would have a game plan to throw it 42 times. I'm sorry, Amanda. Go ahead.
Oh, you're fine. So I always start with what do you think it will take for looking at this offense, looking at Hendon Hooker, looking at these wide receivers, and we know they're way more dynamic, obviously, than LSU's offense. What do you think it will take for LSU to be able to stop that? Like, what would they need to target? And do you think that's even possible?
LSU needs to score 60. Right. And that's and I'm saying like just in general, because I think it's with our pace, I don't think it's hard for anybody to beat us points wise unless we beat ourselves. So like LSU in general, offensively, they got to be able to throw the ball and they got to be able to score throwing the ball. Like straight up. I don't know if they can do that. And then for LSU on the defensive side, they've got to be able to get us 3 and out 4, 5, 6, 7 times in a row. I just, like I said, last year I wouldn't have said this. I think we're too deep for LSU. Last year I'd have been like, man, we don't have any depth. And I said that publicly. They've done a great job in recruiting. So I think, especially at our wide receiver core, we got some guys that can roll in and roll out. And I don't think LSU can handle that. And once again, I don't think LSU can throw the ball to beat us. I think we outman them personally, just top to bottom, which I was kind of good to say because I would never have said that last year.
Hadn't been said in a long time.
That's what I'm saying. Like, it feels good to actually say that again. I think LSU is set up for failure this week, and I hope I'm not wrong when I say that.
John, great stuff. I appreciate you making the time. I know you're going to coach and mentor the youth in the future of football, and it's a fantastic endeavor. We're going to hear more about that as you go along. But John, certainly appreciate it. And again, I'll text you and get the sizes for those shirts, and we'll get them out.
Sweet, I appreciate it.
All right, buddy. Best to you and your family.
All right, thanks. Y'all have a good one.
I appreciate it. And a couple of people said on the message board just now, man, it's making me like Lane Kiffin or respect Lane Kiffin a little bit more. Well, we didn't just write a full biography of Lane Kiffin, so everybody has their goods and bads. But if not for Lane Kiffin, maybe another coach would have done it with a coaching change. But if not for Lane Kiffin, Jonathan Crompton is not remembered nearly as fondly as he is, because Lane Kiffin did exactly that. And I'll share another story with you that I was told, and that was Lane Kiffin basically went to Jonathan Crompton, and Jonathan did not have the backing of the previous Tennessee coaches. They wanted to go in a different direction. I think you probably remember BJ Coleman's name. There were a lot of guys in that coaching staff that thought that they wanted to go in a different direction. I could get into the various whys, who's, and whats, but it didn't have anything to do with his ability. But I know that Lane Kiffin went to him when he first got the job, and one of the first things he did is he went to Jonathan and he said, "What happened?" He said, "You're not the same guy that I saw coming out of high school. You're not that same guy." And that's the guy that I want to get back. And it took a lot of time. And that senior year was not rosy. You mentioned the UCLA game. It took until basically the Georgia game before he showed publicly that he had arrived, even though I think his confidence arrived before that, as he just alluded to. So, yeah, I mean, everybody's got their good and bad. Lane absolutely deserves credit for getting the most out of that 2009 team that he could have gotten, because he had a real quarterback issue on his hands when he arrived. He had one talented guy with a bruised ego and a confidence issue, and Jonathan would tell you that just did. And it would have been the easiest thing to do. And I wondered if that was what he should do. I'll be real honest with you, even though, I'm close to Jonathan. Amanda, the easiest thing to do would have been to go with the guy from Chattanooga, who I know that the coaches liked a lot. One coach pulled me inside and told me how much he liked him, and there was a reason he told me that. It's because that's what he wanted the messaging to be publicly. It would have been easy to go with BJ Coleman. And BJ Coleman was upset, and a lot of fans were upset because they didn't believe in Crompton at the time. And then BJ, which was very out of character, spoke publicly about the fact that he wasn't going to be the starter and immediately transferred. I think BJ's a great guy. I think he made some rash comments afterwards. But who wouldn't, thinking that you're going to be the starter and when things change and Lane Kiffin comes in. But ultimately, Amanda, you have to give a lot of credit for what Lane Kiffin did with that 2019, because that whole team, talk about culture, was in disarray. So we talk about year 2 of changing culture. He did it midway through the first year, which I thought was pretty phenomenal.
There's a lot of good to Lane Kiffin, as far as it goes. I know he left a bad taste in Tennessee fans, mouths and stuff. And the NCAA sanctions definitely didn't help with that. Don't get me wrong. But he took the job that was his dream job. I mean, he took the job at USC, and he did give a press conference. He did tell his players. And I know he promised a lot of things to Tennessee, but every coach does that. Unfortunately, every coach does that. And it's with Lane, I know, as when he was at Alabama, the offensive genius of him is incredible to me. Now, defensively, he couldn't tell you anything, but offensively, he has that kind of skill set that you want in a coach. I think Heupel has that as well offensively. I think Heupel might be even a little bit more of kind of the genius, because Lane's done it with talent. Heupel's done it without it at UCF, as we've seen. And we've seen how far he's taken this Tennessee team this season. But Lane still has a lot of good as far as coaching goes. Yes, he has some pretty bad character traits sometimes, Joey Freshwater. But on the field and with the players, it seems like he is a much better and more, charismatic figure than he is with the media. And that says a lot. Saban's the same way. You have, players that'll play for Saban, and in the media, Saban's just shutting them down left, right, and center. Lane's pretty much the same. So
remember this about that 2019. Okay, and this is back when my one criticism of Nick Saban, I believe, was warranted. I thought he took his foot off the gas pedal in the second half a little too early. And I still believe that's warranted. And it almost cost them against Tennessee that year. You're talking about a Tennessee team that would have, if not for field goal kicking issues And Lane's decision, which was curious, not to try to get a few more yards in that final kick, and a guy named Mount Cody that blocked 2 field goals in that
Hit
game.
him in the chest.
Yeah.
That last one hit him in the chest.
Right. So, but if not for but he dominated. It was flat.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. There were all kinds of problems with that field goal. And Lane should have tried to pick up about 10 more yards because there were 12 seconds left and he let it run down to 2. Nevertheless, you're talking about a team that almost beat Alabama in Tuscaloosa and pounded Georgia. I mean, that's for year one, that's pretty good. And I'm not saying that Lane would have gone on to great success. I think there are all kinds of potential pitfalls. Maybe shoulda, coulda, woulda. But as far as having his players back and being an offensive mind, he's right up at the top. Final predictions, score predictions for the Tennessee LSU game. I'm absolutely awful at this, but I'm going to say that Tennessee wins. I'm going to say 37-26. 37-26. So I think that LSU moves the ball, but I think they stall at times in the red zone and they end up kicking field goals. So 37-26. Brittany has Tennessee 31-17 over LSU. Spencer has 34-28. Brandon has 45-24. Amanda, what say you?
42-27, Tennessee.
42-27. So we're pretty close. We're only about 5-6 points off. So combined. So, all right, guys.